Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrea Honigsfeld,
And I'm Maria Dove.
and we're very excited to participate in the virtual 17 conference. Even though this session is pre-recorded, we hope to engage with you through the Twitter hashtag virtual17 at a later time. Enjoy our presentation on Co-Teaching for English Learners, a collaborative service delivery.
So our agenda for this presentation is to define a collaborative service delivery for English learners. We are going to also examine co-teaching through a cycle of co-planning, co-instruction, co-assessing, and reflection practices. And we're going to discuss the implementation of various co-teaching models, ways to configure classrooms to enhance rigorous differentiated instruction for English learners.
A little bit about ourselves. I am Andrea, and I co-taught in New York City.
And I'm Maria, and I co-taught in Valley Stream, New York.
And as you could see from this slide, we code a lot. We co-authored, co-presented, co-facilitated workshops, and we're very excited to be able to co-present this virtual presentation for you as well.
We now collaborate with one another through the Division of Education at Molloy College in Rockville Center, New York.
We have also co-authored quite a few books and different publications. These are just some of the books that we would like to share with you. Most of them are with Corwin Press.
So we want to begin our conversation with you by sharing why. Why is this practice so essential for English learners?
One of the most compelling reasons for collaborating is because we're moving away from the ESOL teacher or ELL teacher being the sole, having the sole responsibility of addressing the needs of English learners. We firmly believe that all teachers are teachers of English language learners.
Second is that all English learners should be engaged in content instruction that is grade appropriate, academically rigorous, language rich, and aligned with standards. And we find that this is essential for the academic growth of English learners. In many programs, we find that the identification of both content and language objectives really provide the framework for English learners to develop their language proficiency in English, as well as maintain their understanding and development of content alongside their English-speaking peers.
So if we think back to the way ESL services began, this is a pretty traditional framework for offering services. English learners receive pull-out or standalone classes. The ESOL teachers work in isolation. Often English learners are segregated for part of the day, and the main focus of the curriculum is the 4 language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
And even if you think about traditional programs of yesteryear, they really focused more on listening and speaking before they actually involved students with any substantive reading and writing. So we find that we're moving away from this model. It's almost very akin to the study of foreign languages, where grammar and pattern practice in different verb tenses and different parts of grammar are taught in isolation. We find that programs like this did not benefit students in developing their academic language skills, as well as the content that they needed to be successful in their classes.
In the past decade or so, we have experienced a dramatic paradigm shift in services for English learners.
And here is the shift that we see. We see this move to collaborative teaching. We have in parentheses there push in, but we would like to push away from that term. So it's kept in parentheses. When we talk about this practice, many teachers are still using the term push in. We like to talk about integrated services. We like to talk about it as collaborative teaching or co-teaching. We also like to say that it's about partnership teaching as well. So where's the shift? So instead of having teachers work in isolation, we now perceive integrated services as having collaborative teacher teams. So the ESOL teacher works alongside grade level and content area teachers to develop curriculum maps, to plan lessons and instructional strategies that work well for English learners in the regular classroom. We talk about the services being integrated as far as instruction is concerned, so that students develop their language skills alongside their understanding of the content. We talk about how the student population is also integrated so that English learners aren't taught in isolation. We want them to be integrated with their English-speaking peers. And in this way, English learners really do have a wonderful model of English and also a purpose for learning English, because students learn to speak English, not to talk to their teachers, but actually to talk to other students. And last but not least, that the curriculum is integrated so that content and language instruction is developed together.
This is a diagram that really emphasizes the fact that co-teaching alone is not going to get us the results that we are hoping for. Instead, we like to talk about the collaborative, integrated instructional cycle that consists of co-planning, co-instruction, co-assessment, and reflection.
We think that these components are essential for teaching of English learners. We often say that there is no co-teaching or co-instruction without co-planning, co-assessment, and reflection. They are equally important, and they balance a well-taught integrated program.
And we're going to now unpack these 4 phases. So co-planning should not be just on the fly, once in a while, you plan, I follow type of an arrangement. Instead,
it needs to be integrated into the school day. There needs to be a particular framework or scheduled meetings for co-planning to take place. It needs to be systemic and sustained over the course of the semester or the academic year. It needs to be there needs to be a team approach. So not only do we suggest that the ESOL teacher and his or her co-teacher meet regularly, we really suggest that grade level teams or content area teams of teachers meet, even though some teachers might not have English learners in their classes, that it should be a true collaborative effort to unpack the curriculum that is essential for English learners. And also, idea of combining technology, using technology in ways for English learners so that they develop technological skills and have the experience with technology they might not be exposed to in their home situations.
the routine that we recommend for co-planning success also includes 4 phases. Step 1 is getting very organized with curricular materials, lesson plans, any other instructional frameworks that the co-teachers are using. The standards definitely need to be accessible. Pre-planning takes place while the two co-teachers are not together, but they are preparing, previewing the material, and they're gathering the necessary instructional tools for the co-planning to go smoothly and effectively. But the co-planning time is rarely enough for most co-teachers that we worked with, so we recommend that the co-planning cycle ends with post-planning, during which time the two co-teachers go their separate ways and finish up the co-planning for the week or for the instructional cycle that they're addressing in their co-planning period.
We advocate for the use of technology for collaboration. We understand that teachers no longer have the luxury of meeting face-to-face, particularly if there are ESOL teachers who are co-teaching with multiple teachers within a given day. So we do suggest that teachers, as part of their organization for co-planning, identify technology that's going to support their conversations as well as the sharing of their information and documents. Andrea and I, we basically live in Dropbox. That's how we share our documents because we do a lot of co-authoring, and that's how we accomplish that task. We know other teachers use Google Docs that you can actually share and write simultaneously on a particular document, and that's another way of sharing. There are other ways also of talking with one another. One website we recently discovered, Chatsy, is the old-fashioned type of chat room you set up, and you can invite as many people as you'd like. So these are just some of the pieces of applications that we have discovered in our research that teachers use in order to enhance their collaborative practices.
We have designed a few co-planning templates. We particularly recommend planning templates that look at a week at a glance, a unit at a glance, maybe even a month at a glance. This particular planning form invites the co-teachers to look at an entire week at a time and address content and language objectives, as well as key activities and resources that are needed.
We often suggest with any of these particular documents that we've created that teachers get inspired by them and create their own documents that they will use in their own practices.
The next co-planning template looks at a single day, a single lesson, and you will notice that it specifies the beginning, the opening, the facilitating, and the closing phase of the lesson. It invites the two teachers to delineate their roles and also to commit to a particular co-teaching approach during the co-taught period.
We recommend this type of co-planning for novice co-teaching teams. It's a way of truly having in-depth conversations about one particular lesson, and it helps teachers to map out and visualize and realize a lesson as a co-taught one.
So now we'll talk briefly about the 7 co-teaching models that we have developed over the course of the years. If you look at the first 3 models, the common denominator here is that all the students, ELLs and non-ELLs, are together, and the 2 teachers have 2 different roles. Model 1 includes a lead teacher and a second teacher who could be teaching on purpose, which is basically another way of saying that the teacher comes well prepared with a specific intention to offer immediate intervention to the students with a specific focus on language or content. The second model includes the 2 teachers teaching the same content or maybe the same skill, the same lesson together. And the third model allows one teacher to address the entire group while the other teacher collects assessment data.
We like to say that these models are springboards. They are not types of class configurations that need to be addressed with fidelity. We often see that teachers, again, to use this word again, get inspired by these models, and they often make up their own or combine these models to facilitate instruction for English learners.
This slide shows the first three models, just visually what they look like. We think it's very important to visualize, to imagine, and practice what these different models could look like and experiment with them in the classroom.
The next group of models, models 4, 5, and 6, you'll notice that now there are two groups of students, and the teachers take on different roles and responsibilities. With model 4, the two groups of students generally are equal in size. The benefit of this model is that it reduces the teacher-student ratio, as well as allows for differentiated instruction. Very often, teachers divide students according to their abilities in the content and not their linguistic abilities in English. This allows teachers to facilitate lessons that focus on student learning in the academic subjects. Model 5 and 6 are very similar in their configuration. You'll find very often that one group is generally larger than the other. Generally, the pre-taught group or the retaught group is a smaller group of students. And we felt very strongly about identifying the pre-teach and reteach, even though they look very similar in their configuration, because we recognize the need for English learners to have that front loading during pre-teaching, as well as need to hear information repeated in the reteaching as well. So those two models are particular to the needs of English learners and their development of English language proficiency. And then last but not least is Model 7. There are multiple groups, and two teachers take on different roles and responsibilities of teaching and monitoring student learning. We've seen as few as 3 groups, which is very typical in the special education model, as well as many as 8 groups. This model is the most versatile, and we find that for the most part, teachers who might be novice or beginning their co-teaching journeys choose this model very frequently. Many teachers use this model to develop teaching centers or stations so that students rotate between these stations. Sometimes one teacher will remain with one group of students while the other teacher will circulate and monitor the work of the other groups of students. So we find that this is the most flexible and most frequently used model. Very often it is used to facilitate lessons for different groups of students.
This slide shows again the illustrations just to better visualize what the models look like. You'll see that even though here in the diagram all group sizes are equal, that's just merely the illustration. In the classroom, we'll see varied class sizes, group sizes, as Maria pointed out. So we have a video here which illustrates Model 3, but please notice how the teacher who is collecting assessment data also offers immediate intervention. And this is what we meant earlier by saying that these models are springboards. They fluidly connect with each other and meaningfully offer support for English learners. A special thank you to Bellevue School District for allowing us to use their training videos.
Following that event, race relations reached an all-time peak. Following what event? What are they talking about?
Today we were using the co-teaching model where one teacher teaches and one assesses. One teacher is in the head of the classroom leading the lesson, and the other teacher is roaming throughout the room, anecdotally assessing the students on a specific skill. She had all the students' names, and she was assessing one particular part of the lesson, which was an oral language skill. And she was going through to see if all the students had done that in their teams. And so then later she and I can debrief and talk about that and talk about the students who struggled the most with it or how we could do it differently next time.
Exactly. Okay. So he's showing us the connection.
It helps the teachers communicate and focus in more specifically on a certain skill, which then benefits students because we can see how well they're doing on it and how we can then help to further their skills.
Someone needs to be checking. Number 2 starts with following that event.
One benefit is just having a second set of eyes on a lesson to help me see how I could change it to meet the students' needs the next time, and also to see how students are doing on a specific skill. And then also just to help students, as there are 2 of us throughout the room, to help kids at the same time.
These are pretty easy. Look at paragraph 1.
It requires a little bit more planning and a little more time to debrief. The more they are accustomed to working together, the better they know one another, the easier it is to co-teach any type of model. And the more you both know the materials and the better you know your students, the more efficient you become using your time.
You'll notice in this video how one teacher was leading the lesson, yet there are times that she paused and she went into more of a Model 7 where she would circulate the class and monitor and assist students who needed support, and then switch back to that lead position. On the other hand, the teacher who was gathering assessment data shifted from Model 3 to Model 1, where she was in that teaching on purpose position. She was frequently supporting and assisting students to understand and develop better oral language skills.
We really appreciated seeing a beautiful example of relational trust in this video. One teacher mentioned that co-assessment or one teach, one assess, this particular model allows one teacher to observe and offer feedback to her colleague, which they often utilize as they plan follow-up lessons.
So we want to also showcase, looking at the instructional cycle, what co-assessment means. If you take a look at this list, you'll notice that co-assessment deals not just with formative and summative assessment, but also a number of items that have to do with assessment with English learners. We look at particularly Model 5, the adaptations and modifications to traditional assessments, because we really feel very strongly that assessment should be modified so that students can readily show what they know, so to speak.
Yeah, if we believe in differentiated instruction, we sure should believe in differentiated assessment practices as well to have valid and reliable data about English learners' development.
So with student assessment, both teachers assess their own students only, and we don't agree with that model. We believe that all teachers are teachers of English learners. Both co-teachers teach all the students, and therefore there should be the co-development of assessment measures. They're co-assessing all students, and the monitoring and responding to students needs to be done in a jointly done way.
So finally, reflection, closing up the collaborative instructional cycle of co-planning, co-teaching, co-assessing, and reflection. One important aspect of reflection that we would like to bring to your attention is the professional identity that we develop and that we present and project to our students and to the entire community. So we prefer to move away from the ESOL teacher versus classroom teacher and communicate to the community that in this classroom there are two teachers working together. You notice that when we presented the 7 models, we never said the ESOL teacher is doing this, the classroom teacher is doing that. Instead, throughout that presentation, we focused on how the two teachers interchangeably take on various roles.
Here is just one possible tool for not only reflective conversations, but also self-assessment of co-teaching practices. You'll notice that when teachers are self-assessing their partnerships, the statements begin not with I, but with we. So we decide, we share, we identify, we agree. Those are the beginnings of the statements that teachers can work on their own to explore, as well as use a tool such as this to enhance their collaborative conversations and reflection.
This is actually also reflective of the number one recommendation we often have for teachers when we coach them, which is being mindful of the pronouns that they use. If they continue to say I, or my expectations for you talking to the children, it will really indicate that the two teachers are not truly on the same page.
We like to offer different ways to reflect on instructional practices, and one is the simple 2+2 feedback. We ask teachers to share 2 things that worked and 2 things that need to be worked on next time. So having this type of 2+2 type of reflection is really very positive in that it starts with the 2 things that went well. So it's really a very supportive way of reflecting with your co-teacher.
Actually, I think we're going to do this right after this webinar is over.
Yes, we most certainly will. I think we have some examples of what this 2+2 looks like. So just take a look at the compliments, which are the 2 things that went well as the suggestions. And here we lay out some of the language that we like to identify as one that really engages and encourages collaborative conversations.
And these collaborative conversations lead to the concept we mentioned earlier, which is strengthening relational trust and building a partnership for the sake of students. It's really all about the kids. And if you note at the bottom of the table, we remind you not to use the word but after a compliment because it will simply erase it.
So you wouldn't say, I appreciate your willingness to review the vocabulary words, but I wish next time you would da-da-da-da-da.
And then I won't remember the compliment that you gave me. I will only remember what will come after but.
So look also at the side where we have the suggestions, very gently making those suggestions. Do you think, or I'm wondering, or something that's missing here is the what if.
Yeah.
What if we is another way to go about making suggestions about changing practices.
So now we invite you to participate on Twitter. We'll go back for a moment. So if you participate on Twitter, use the hashtag virtual17 to reflect on your insights about integrated collaborative teaching for the sake of English learners and share your suggestions and feedback with us.
We want to thank you for being and sharing this time with us. We want you to, we'd like to invite you to visit our websites. Oops, I don't know why that happened.
We'll bring it right back.
There we go. All right, here we go. So our website, coteachingforells.weebly.com, as well as a companion website that really focuses on New York practices of integratedENL.weebly.com. Please join us on Twitter. Andrea is an avid Twitter user. I am more of a retweeter, but our Twitter handles are there, as well as our email.
We're looking forward to a continued collaboration with each other. It's been now 10 years that we've worked together, and with anybody else who would like to share their collaboration stories with us. Thank you very much, and see you on Twitter.
All righty.